All right, so this Knife Thoughts video is going to be a review of this knife, and as you can see, this is the Cold Steel AD10 Lite. So this is another Andrew Demko design for Cold Steel, and I picked this knife up because I really enjoy Andrew Demko's designs, especially with his kind of design flair for Cold Steel. And he has sort of moved on from Cold Steel since they sold to GSM. And this was one that I hadn't tried out yet. And also because I had my birthday discount from Midway USA, which gives you a pretty significant discount. I got this for about $60, I think, which is, quite a bit less than they normally are. So that always makes it a little easier to buy a knife if you can get a good discount. And I wasn't sure, if I would like this knife because I knew that the grip area looked a little smaller than on some of the other Andrew Demko design knives for Cold Steel that I have. And, I have to deal with these pretty wide hands. And so I wasn't sure if my hand would fit in this main grip area here. But when I got it, I was really pleasantly surprised that it did actually very well. It's pretty much the perfect size to have a kind of classic hammer style grip, whatever you want to call this style grip. My fingers, all four fingers, fit really well in this grip area with really no issue in them being, too crowded in there. Now, one thing that this knife kind of has is a little bit of a finger choil. So you can see there's some space here on the handle and then a little bit of space on the blade. And I think that that is designed to be used as a forward finger choil. But for me, I found the edge, or the heel of the edge, to be a little low there, both for holding onto it in a pinch grip like this, but also when you close the knife, because it is done so well, the backlocks that Cold Steel does, or Triad Locks, are done so well, they do drop closed or tend to drop closed, and the heel of the edge was hitting my finger. So I actually did modify it a little bit by just grinding the heel of the edge forward somewhat. And that did fix that issue. I both can choke up and use the finger choil here pretty well without it feeling like I'm gonna poke myself, and I can let it close without it, hitting me with the heel of the edge as I close the knife. So, a little adjustment there to the blade, and no problem after that. Now, speaking a little more of the handle, this is the light version. So it has whatever Cold Steel calls their reinforced nylon. So it's basically a plastic handle, very much like the 4MAX Scout and the 8015 Lite. So again, two other, you need a lot of space in the camera for these knives. Two other knives designed by Andrew Demko that I really enjoy, and they both are kind of the budget versions for Cold Steel. They have higher end versions of all three of these knives that are not Lite or Scout. But being the Lite version, the 8010, like the 8015 and the 4MAX, has plastic handles. So it's kind of a, very similar to FRN, something like that. But it does have a different texture than either of these two other knives. You can see the 4MAX Scout has a really kind of heavy, stippled, or bumpy type pattern. And then the 8015 Lite has this kind of crosshatch type pattern. And I like both those patterns, but actually for, carrying, putting the knife in and out of your pocket, I do like this kind of almost wood grain or leather grain pattern that the 8010 Lite has a little better because, when you have a knife that has this strong a grip area, so this kind of secure a grip area where your hand is really locked in there, you don't have to worry too much about the handle having a lot of texture. Now it does have texture, you get a little bit of grip out of that, but I don't think you need to have a super heavy texture. And what it does is it makes it so it doesn't chew up your pocket quite as much as those other two textures do. So when you put this knife in and out of your pocket, it's a little bit less rough on the material. Now another thing is that all of these knives, for whatever reason, Cold Steel makes their clips so that there is very little space below the lip of the clip to fit your pocket in. I don't know why they do that. It's kind of frustrating because they're all like that. It's like it's purposeful, but it's a bad design choice. They should put more space there. So I did bend this clip upwards somewhat so that there's more space to get, the lip of your pocket in there, and it does not affect the grip at all. It doesn't make it have a hot spot or anything like that. It just makes it basically easier to use because you can put it in and out of your pocket a lot easier. So I definitely always recommend doing that for any of these knives here. So the 8010, the 4max, and the 8015 again, as well as something like the Code 4. So that's another kind of adjustment I made. But beyond those two adjustments, I think that this knife is really great, especially for that great price. And they do go on sale, maybe not quite for that low a price, but they do go on sale on Midway USA in particular, as well as some sites for, pretty low prices compared to their normal price. And it's done well because the design is just so cool. Andrew Demko, knows how to design a knife. It looks and feels just really burly, really hefty. You can get a great grip, and really go to work. It has a classic drop point blade. You get some straight edge, some belly, a relatively usable tip there, and it's ground pretty well also. It's not, it's not just a folding pry bar. It is ground to cut, so I appreciate that. Cold Steel also does a really, really good job of these Triad Locks, or whoever makes these for Cold Steel. So this came from the factory, came from the dealer, I guess I should say, with beautiful action. I mean, you can see it is very drop closed. When I disengage that lock, it drops right down. And sometimes you cut your mouse pad. But it is very, very smooth, both opening and closing, and easy to flick open, like very easy. It's an extremely smooth backlog. I would say that Cold Steel, especially this one in particular, does such a good job of these Triad locks. And of course, it is just super solid. It, has no blade play at all. It has the pin in there for the Triad lock that makes it even more solid if you're, hitting the edge against something or whatever kind of abuse you're doing. And just super solid forward and back and side to side, as well as when unlocked, there's no side to side play. So just really well done. It's also well centered, as you can see. And like I say, it cuts pretty well also. So I'm really happy with it. I think that I would still be happy with it at its normal price, and especially at the sale price that it often goes for. But at the price I was able to get it for, it's a really great deal. Now, a lot of people tend to kind of complain about OS 10A. I have no complaints about it. I know that I say this about a lot of steels that people complain about, but for me, it is a fine steel. I remember, when I had Cold Steels with OS 8 steel, they did great. I mean, I was really impressed with the heat treat that they had on their OS 8 steel before they switched to this OS 10A. And so the OS 10A should just basically be an upgrade over that. So I really have no problem with it, particularly on, again, these budget versions. And I'll show you here the Code 4 and kind of bring up, I think, the main thing about this AD10 Lite, which is that I see this as probably the most EDC friendly of these big, hefty Andrew Demko designs for Cold Steel. So if you, look at the 4max or 4max Scout and think, that is an awesome, ridiculous looking knife, but I just wouldn't carry and use it because it's too big. This AD10 Lite has the same design kind of language to it, but in a size more similar to the Code 4. So the Code 4 has similar design, but it's so thin that it just doesn't have that really hefty feel and look to it. So the Code 4, great EDC knife, but it just doesn't have that, I guess, again, burly look and feel that some of these Andrew Demko designs have. And I think that the AD10 Lite does have that without being, ridiculous, too big, too hefty, all of that. So if you're looking for a really sturdy EDC knife, I think that this AD10 Lite is a great option, particularly if you can get it for that sale price. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. Check out my other social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Knife Thoughts, and my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.